Call the meeting of the North Reading School Committee to order for August 3rd, 2010. I saw Mr. Venezia last night. He was nervous because it was Monday night and he was afraid he missed the meeting, and I reassured him that no, we changed it to Tuesday. So,
I actually showed up.
did you show up last night?
I did. I was
You
not
know
sure what day it
we're
was.
live and on air here.
Thank
I
you.
understand that. That is my dedication.
Thank you
to
for
the
your
community.
dedication. We appreciate it very much. First order of business is public input. Anybody be seen in public input? This time, okay. Next item, we have two items for the principals. I think they're probably gonna both take equal amount of time, and unfortunately, John is on first. Sorry. So, Mr. Bernard? Yeah. Yeah, we'll wear out all our questions on John Bernard, then you guys will just slide right through. Yeah, come on up, John. This is actually related to the revised chemical health policy, which we've been talking about probably for a month and a half or 2 months now. I think we're close. However, there are still some issues, I think mainly sticking in Mr. Venezia's craw, and they're some of the historic issues that he's talked about. I think they relate both to the handbook and to the revised chemical health policy. So before we went forward, John, I wanted to give you a chance to answer some questions and talk to us about, you know, what's been going on, and maybe refresh us on what exactly the handbook says right now, if you have that in front of you. So, Jerry, you wanna, because you had a couple of the issues, I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, Cliff's done a lot of work on this, and I think he's got to refine down to certainly where we're at a compromise position
Right.
here on a lot of this. John, the thing that's always bothered me, I think you're aware of this, is that I was always in disagreement regarding the restrictions on participation, whether it be for activities and/or athletics. In particular, for weekend or holiday activities, this includes the school day prior to the activity. So I've never been able to accept the rationale behind, I'm not even sure what the rationale behind that policy is, that if a student's out, for instance, on a Friday, that they couldn't participate on a Saturday, Sunday, or a Monday holiday. So that's something I'm opposed to, and it seems to me if a student's out sick on a Friday, that if they're feeling better on a Saturday, that they should be able to participate. I'm thinking in terms of anything from a master's presentation to a football, whatever it might be, and that's one of the issues that I have. The second is, and I know Cliff has done some work on this, and he's got a couple of alternatives here. But the second thing I have a problem with is a student who's either dismissed or tardy not being able to participate as well. So those right now, I think, other than that, I'm probably in compliance or in agreement with the other recommendations. I think most of this, Cliff, still stays with the MIA policy for the most part, right?
For the most part,
Yeah.
there's some deviations on it that,
But that's my, the same thing I've had since probably before you were principal, and certainly during the time you've been principal.
Yeah, I think it has come up annually. I think
Yeah.
last year we made a change, and if I remember correctly, we kind of joked about the fact that I got a 5-0 vote on the handbook
Yeah.
last year. We made a change to, I think it was on the dismissal piece.
Right.
Yeah, and I don't know why I was either weak that night or not feeling well or something, because I acquiesced,
You thought we were
and I
voting
don't
on
know
something
why
else.
I don't know why I did, but so.
Well, if I could go back, Mr. Venezia, to your original question, you made a reference to not maybe agreeing with the rationale behind it. And I think the rationale for me is just very simply that we encourage good attendance at school, number one. And also, I think we've done a good job, at least, for the point of reference that I have the last 7 years, of instilling in students a sense that they have a greater obligation to a team or a club of which they're a part, and that their attendance and participation fully in school is something that's necessary. And I think the reason we've had a good response from students for that is because I think on the other end of it, with the clauses throughout attendance, tardy, dismissal, absences, around extenuating circumstances, we in the office have done, I think, we have been fair in our approach to granting students dispensation around extenuating circumstances. So I think between from the student's perspective and then from the office's perspective, I think we've come together pretty well. I think we've come together very well. And in fact, at the meeting I was at, I think it was in June when I first brought the handbook in, we as the groups, the committee members and I, we kind of spoke about what what was the level of complaint that we were getting on it, and was there much pushback on it? And I think we kind of all agreed that there really had not been. Not that that should necessarily drive whether or not the policy is written as it is, but I just think it's information to have. I can recall 2 instances in the last school year where a student athlete, I can't recall any for extracurricular activities, but I can recall 2 instances with student athletes where they were prevented from playing in a game on a day when they had an unexcused tardy, and in one case it was a student's 12th tardy. There was no issue with the student, there was no issue with the parent. We never heard from the parent. I mean, I think there was a logic to it that, okay, you've used up your good graces, so to speak.
Yeah, but see, John, the problem I have with that is, again, I think they're mutually exclusive. I think you can have good attendance and a student that attends school every single day and then is out because they're sick or they're ill, and then they're precluded again from participating.
Okay, so you're talking about on the Friday one for the weekend?
I'm talking about the Friday for the weekend.
The Friday
yeah.
for the weekend, I think that one is more, if the student isn't participating in practice, they're not gonna be able to play. So if you got a Saturday game.
Well, that's again, that's a coach's decision. That's a coach's decision. An unexcused tardy is not a product of how many they've had, it's one. One unexcused tardy. You could be tardy once the entire 180 days.
That's
If
correct.
you're more than 15 minutes late, then under the policy, you're precluded from participating. And I just don't, I have no problem if the policy for a tardy is that you have to serve a detention. And if they serve that detention and as a result of that, they miss practice or they miss a game, then so be it. But I don't think that they should necessarily have to miss the practice or the game or the activity because of that one tardy. Same with dismissed. To me.
Can we stay on the
Go ahead.
tardy for a minute, just
Go
so I can make it?
ahead.
It's true that we did, a couple of years ago, we instituted the 15-minute grace period,
Right.
3 unexcused, which I think was a good 3 unexcused a semester. It's true, someone could come in at 7:46, 7:47. That could be a case that's true, but it could also be that they come in after going out to breakfast with their friends at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I don't think that's what the spirit of what we're trying to do. I think
It
that's-
might be, but again, I guess what I'm saying is, sometimes you make it sound like because I have this position, I'm advocating kids coming in late, or kids being
No, I
absent,
don't
or
feel
kids
that
being
way.
dismissed.
I don't mean to suggest
But my point is that I'm not advocating that. I think that we need to have a policy. I'm just saying that when you look at activities and extracurricular activities and sports, it's an additional sanction, additional punishment that they have to
I
incur
don't see it that way.
that another student doesn't. And again, I think somebody comes in at 7:46, they serve their detention and then they participate. On the dismissed, these are the very kids. We have probably 30% of the student population at the high school that participate in 3 sports. I think we have 50 or 60% that participate in 2 sports. These are the very kids that, because of their dedication to their activity or their sport, they're the ones that don't have time to do any of these things. They don't have time if they have to have a root canal, like Miss Susie did today. That they don't have the opportunity to go. They're tied up. They're locked in every single day. The football team, it's 6 days a week. They don't have the opportunity to go take their driving test. And I'm not suggesting these are always good reasons to be tardy or to be dismissed. But these are the kids that have the most pressure on them to be in school every day, and they don't have an opportunity to do some things that, in some cases, would be essential to be able to do. So
But we note in the policy, it's noted that extenuating circumstances are evaluated by
But
the
it's
school administrator.
arbitrary. It's totally arbitrary. There's no definition of what an exceptional circumstance is. It's completely arbitrary and based on whoever the principal is. And this policy should cover all circumstances regardless of who's the principal or the vice principal. So, so again, my position is that, particularly in the weekend thing, I just see no basis for it whatsoever. I mean, if a kid's sick on a Friday, I don't see any reason or any good rationale other than trying to force a sick kid to come to school because they know they have a game on Saturday or a game on Monday, whatever it is. And on the unexcused and on the unexcused tardy and on the dismissal, again, I think there should be some built-in guidelines or standards for what's acceptable and what's not. I think it's just you throwing a blanket over it and saying anybody that comes in late or anybody that has to be dismissed. I mean, a kid that's dismissed knowing that they have to participate in an activity that day, it's a very difficult decision.
But Joe,
My
but Joe,
daughter,
we did change the dismissal
Yeah, and it's
policy.
not, I don't know that it is that difficult.
That
a
the
decision.
child,
We
if
have a
the,
lot
if the
of
student comes
dismissals
back,
that-
well, where does it say that here?
it doesn't say that here, but the handbook
It
says if the
is.
student comes back.
Returns to school?
If
Yes.
it's a dismissal and they return, provided they've been in school for 50% of the school
Well,
day.
I'd like to see that included here.
Well, I
then.
was just talking to Cliff about that earlier.
So if that's included here, that would solve that problem.
It's under, I think, the,
It is in the handbook.
attendance portion.
Right.
Just
Okay.
the general attendance portion.
Okay,
of the book.
if that's obviously,
But that's I think we added that in last year.
We did.
yeah, I think
The
that's
50%.
I
why,
think that's why you
I
caught
voted
Jerry,
for
right,
it.
that's why Jerry,
I took a little bit of a
It's on,
leap of faith.
leap of faith.
The one question I would
He
ask though,
hallucinated, actually.
both of John and Kathy could probably chime in here also, is not that we have to have our policy the same as other districts, but I'm curious as to what other districts do, both on the tardy issue and also on the day before weekend holiday issue. If anybody has any, and Kathy, you were at Triton, obviously. What do you remember what the policy was up there? The exact policy?
I think it's similar, but I'm gonna defer to John as
Okay.
far as his knowledge of what
yeah,
is a high
I did
school.
look at some other schools.
Okay.
That was not one of them, but they're all different. In some cases, we are more strict, more stringent, and in other cases, we are less. The policies I looked at were Linfield, Ipswich, Wilmington, North Andover, Hamilton, Wenham, Reading, Amesbury, and Georgetown. And they run the gamut, they really do. From, a far greater grace period, if you will, from the R745 start to being penalized for an entire week of participation. So it's everywhere in between. For me, I think part of what drives me on my belief is where we're at as a school and the data that we have on our student attendance and the fairness that I think has been achieved by the
But
implementation
you
of
have
the
absolutely no
policy.
data